You fool! Warren is dead.
Welcome to HorrorBabble. Today, we've got another curiosity in store for you. The House of Cards by Malcolm Ferguson is one of two stories by the American author to feature the paranormal investigator Thomas Chadwick. It's our belief that Ferguson created the character in homage to William Hope Hodgson's PI, Thomas Carnacki. The story first appeared in Weird Tales back in September 1947. The follow-up story, Mr. Hide and Seek, will be with you this coming Friday, February 5th. We hope you enjoy this one, folks. The House of Cards, a Thomas Chadwick story, by Malcolm Ferguson. Now this Madame Jumel was a dark lady, or at least she aspired to be, from the moment she cast off the name of Alice Lemming and appropriated the name once held by a friend of Aaron Burr. Thus Thomas Chadwick began the evening's discussion. We had just put in a strenuous day packing old man Parmalee down from Hanson Mountain after he had spent the night in the woods up there with a broken leg, and I was glad to stay overnight with Chadwick, the Englishman, whose newly acquired ark of a house was plunged in the woods on the old, disused road over Tumble-Down Dick. So, with considerable relief at a search and rescue job well done, and the veteran woodsman Parmalee restored to safety, I could turn my attention with interest to the facts that were agitating the mind of my friend, and the hot rum toddy he provided. She owned this house, you know, and for a while in the 1880s and 90s took in boarders. She liked the pretense of being a woman of mystery, dealt in clairvoyance, ectoplasmic emanations, and all that. I don't think she fully realized her opportunities, however. Surely this ghastly old house alone, or that pack of tarot cards on the table, should be enough, in the hands of a capable spook artist, to give her the prestige she desired. Chadwick was right. The old house was a monstrosity which would take a lot of altering. It had been built in the 1850s, when dark brown stain was in vogue for the woodwork, and hundreds of board feet of fretwork had supplanted the honest, simple lines of earlier craftsmanship. Undoubtedly, the shades had been drawn to protect the parlor furniture from fading, and antimacassars, cluttered corner whatnots, and decorated kerosene lamps under the guise of good taste overcrowded the room, making one feel shut in and ill at ease, creating an apprehension which is part of that insidious, intangible feeling, our sometime fear, of old houses. "Yes, I've seen pictures of the old gal," I ventured. She had soot-black hair drawn back sharply in a way that didn't do her features justice, and it's also true that her features would have appeared to better advantage if she had known how to smile, and not kept her lips in a thin line. Those black dresses of hers were certainly severe, too, but didn't a rumpus about death and insanity go along with her? "Right on the noggin, old boy," said Chadwick gleefully, making his knuckles crack by way of being excited. "These two folio volumes have been giving me a good deal on the matter." He held up two bound notebooks stuffed with papers and dust begrimed. "I was lightening up this front parlor woodwork when I noticed that the bottom shelf of the corner cupboard lifts out," he explained. "Lord, what a find. Does this make her out to have been a murderer?" "Well, yes and no. Let's reconstruct the whole affair with now and then a bit of help from these volumes. Then we can judge better." In the spring of 1882, when she fell heir to this place, the Tumble-Down Dick Road was used quite a lot more than it is now, even if the railroad from Boston was already drawing traffic around by Tavistock. For 2 years she lived here by herself, wrapped in her exclusive interests and sheltered by the funereal spruce trees that flanked the south and east faces of the house. In 1884 came financial troubles, brought on by the New York bank failings, apparently. She must have been hard hit, because in less than a year she was planning to take in boarders. Yes, boarders, profaning the temple of her house, laughing at her behind her back, running the curtains way up, disarraying the antimacassars, pulling her back from the spirit world to get coffee or toast, occupying the bathroom, and lounging about in her parlor. The unhappiness of reduced circumstances cast a pall of gloom about this dark lady, Madame Jumel. In spite of her sombre mien, exacting habits, burnt toast, and cold coffee, and above all, in spite of the house itself, boarders came. The west room, with its view of the White Mountains, was more expensive, whereas the east room, over this room, her front parlor, was hemmed in by the trees, now providently gone. The upstairs bedroom must have been cold and moist and uninviting, bearing in itself all that was wrong, all that was outcast of soul about boarding houses. With the snuffing of the oil lamp, the room was engulfed by the darkness of a raven's wing, an ominous atmosphere with an implicit nevermore, or a Votan's warning of a black doom due, a heaviness which seemed to be awaiting that horrible apparition known in the language of my Scotch schoolmaster as the Boneless. One fall evening, Madame Jumel fetched a French-Canadian crone from Tavistock up to witness some spiritualistic manifestations. Tante Marie was the best audience Madame Jumel could get sometimes, though she often proved disappointing to her hostess. Madame Jumel might perform at a séance with the distraught airs of Lady Macbeth, to find afterwards that her guest was quite unruffled. These are just spirit, she would nod. I see them often. They tell me their troubles. Yes, yes. But what is that book with the black shadow over it? Madame Jumel's diary would splutter at this, calling Tante Marie a superstitious old fool, illiterate and unappreciative, and much more in the same vein. True enough, Tante Marie did not have much book learning, but what she had learned from was folklore, instinct, and word of mouth. What puzzled and vexed Madame Jumel particularly was Tante Marie's belief that a book, a house, or some other inanimate object could be a sinister talisman, more than that even, a potent force in itself. Here, let me read you a passage from her diary about this Tante Marie. Rode down today and picked up Tante Marie in Frenchtown. She had heard that I had a pack of tarot cards at the house and wanted to see them. I told her how I had bought them from a bookshop in Riversmouth, just after a sailor had brought them in. Stole them from a gypsy, huh? Well, maybe. They're real old, 16th century probably, and have 22 symbols of Atu, besides 56 other cards more or less like ours. During the ride, I couldn't seem to interest Tante Marie in my Ouija board contact at all. The cards were all that interested her. When we arrived at the house, however, she became quite uneasy. It's full, she said. I couldn't imagine what she meant. The house. It's full. You had better not practice tonight or any more here. Bad, bad luck, death, blood. Too long you have practiced here already. Full, like sparks in a cat's fur. Soon it will be stronger than you. With her hawk's face, beady eyes, and sharp, cackling voice, Tante Marie set me on edge tonight. Finally, I persuaded her to stay long enough to see the cards, whose mere physical form conveyed a dark force to the old woman. The only boarder, Horace Tolliver, seemed to be interested in them also, and folded his newspaper as I brought them to the parlor table. He apparently came into some money somewhere along the line, but it doesn't seem to give him much pleasure now. He just seems to wander around like someone extra, like the Joker in a deck of cards maybe, separate and different. The three of us examined the cards, looking especially at the Atu, or symbols, death, temperance, the hermit, Pope Joan, Le Pendu, a dead man hanged by one leg and in chains, 22 in all. Tante Marie examined them all with misgivings at the portent she saw in them. Choose the card of your destiny, I offered. No, she replied. Not yet, I guess. Besides, I don't like the feel of this house. No, it would choose, not me. That would be no good. Mr. Tolliver could not keep his curiosity back, and said, Choose one for me, then, and tell me what it means. She gave him a sharp look, an examination with her eyes slitted. Knowing her, I suspected she didn't like something she saw in him. Many times it is better not to know, but you do not believe, so choose if you like. With a convulsive move, she thrust the deck toward him. He shuffled and drew the Wheel of Fortune. "Ha!" said Tante Marie. "You figure this one yourself. Didn't it turn once for you? It will turn once more against you." Mr. Tolliver wilted at this turn of affairs, and mumbled his thanks for the fortune-telling. Shortly afterward, he went up to bed. I rebuked Tante Marie for her bluntness. But, Madame Jumel, the card does not lie, and I cannot hide fate. After that, I couldn't interest Tante Marie in a spiritual manifestation. She was too engrossed with Mr. Tolliver and the card he drew, or as she insisted, the house drew for him. So I drove her back earlier than usual. Chadwick closed the book and explained that the room over the parlour in which we sat was the room to which Mr. Horace Tolliver had retired, the room flanked with spruce trees, its darkness having a dense atmosphere enfolding one like the black fluid some sea creatures exude. With its brown-stained rococo woodwork, its overstuffed furniture, and its ponderous oak bed with a canopy, it gave one the shut-in feeling of the claustrophobe, as if the air were denser, darker, a malevolent, sentient thing in itself. It was about 3 in the morning when 2 shots rang through that chamber. Madame Jumel, in bathrobe, thrust at the door, and finally, in desperation, fetched an axe and, swinging wildly, battered down the door. In the room, a flickering oil lamp revealed Mr. Horace Tolliver sprawled on the floor with a bullet through his temple. The scene Chadwick described was immediate to me, being directly overhead. A lamp, possibly the same one, was our only source of light, and I needed only to take it in hand and climb the stairs to see the room as it was when the body was found. Chadwick's interior decorating had not yet reached the 2nd floor. The suicide left a note, a hasty, distracted scrawl that sheds all the light on the crime that we need. But what possessed Madame Jumel to put this note in her diary instead of surrendering it to the authorities, who were soon on the scene? Perhaps her character suggests an answer. The fascination of this all-revealing note was too great for her, at the expense of little or no incrimination to herself, for it was obviously a suicide. She could hold the key to the crying mystery of why. Silently, Chadwick handed me the loose sheets from the diary. "Will it not end? This house, this room, this bed, that Canuck witch woman? What madness! Is there no peace after all these years? Never before has it been so bad, but now the whole crime is before me, around me. I came up to bed with that wheel of fortune on my mind, haunted by the fact that a wheel is round, and so is a well, and that my fortune began with a well. I was Miss Emily's handyman then, 20 years ago, a young fool covetous of her riches. Wasn't money all I needed to make Jeanette my wife? Doubly a fool for that. But tonight there is no sleep. In the deep dark of this room, dark enough to make one pale, lying in bed, a fearful sensation overcame me. I was spinning backwards and inwards down a long spiral darkness. I opened my eyes and sat up. I was sure the utterly black room was going round me. Had I eaten or drunk immoderately? Surely not. Never since my crime had I taken a drink. I haven't dared. "Good God!" I exclaimed softly, and the sound echoed back, I swear it, a mocking, hollow horror that could only have come from the depths of a well. Then all sensation of being in bed left me, and I felt myself bruised and numb, but strangely dry, in the bottom of a well. I reached out, sand, cobwebs, cold rock. At last a glimmer of light, a faint trace only. My hands gripped into the sand in spite of me. I was looking up from the dry bottom of a well, up the rough stones to the top, and the supreme horror there, leaning over and obscuring the light of day, was the old lady, Miss Emily, wet and dead. just as she was when her body was hauled out. I closed my eyes and thrust my hands before them. Could I not shut out this vision? I dared not stir and feel the sand, the cold stone. Slowly a spider crawled up my back, threading beads of sweat on the web it trailed. And then a voice, not from a well, but from the outside, the unrestricted open air, remote, far off. Did you win your girl with my money, Horace Tolliver? Why did I cry, no, no? Was it to hear my own voice echo back emptily down the round well side? Have my worldly goods brought you happiness, Horace Tolliver? My sobs echoed back. I could not contain them. Answer me. No, no, never. What horrors this night brings. Forming, reforming, mocking. Miss Emily, said I, today I'm going to fix your well, clean it and stone it up. It's about time, she said. Come out and show me how you think it should be. And then I was holding her atilt over the coping by her scrawny black stockinged ankles, and she was pleading for her life. Most of her money was in her mattress, and it would be mine, she squealed. It will indeed, I grated. She howled as she plunged head first to splash in the waters below. Then silence and darkness, until at last the crazily twisted figure broke the waters. How did I get the bedroom floor under my feet, or find a match, or light this lamp? What is forcing me to write? I can see my pistol by my left hand. In a moment I will clutch it and turn around. I know that Miss Emily will be standing there. I know it. As I put down the paper, Chadwick remarked that Miss Emily must indeed have been waiting, since Tolliver's first bullet was embedded in the wainscot where he had turned and fired it. I could see for myself, if I chose, where the mark was. As you can imagine, Chadwick assured me Madame Jumel walked on eggs for a while after Tolliver's death. Her views didn't seem to approach Tante Marie's appreciably, however, and her rationale of the Tolliver death was long and involved with spiritualistic abracadabra, influences of the zodiac, and much more in her cluttered diary. She did manage to get the big oak bed moved out of the room, and an iron bed put in its place, not a radical improvement, but a step in the right direction. Madame Jumel's business was quite brisk following the suicide. The notoriety seems to have helped rather than hindered. It was undoubtedly notoriety that brought flashy Milton Digby to the Maison Jumel. Digby looked more like a gambler than a banker, but could this be a rebuke to our too ready observations? That he was young, dapper, and a man of leisure with no tangible evidence of a bank's problems touching him at all was more apparent. Madame Jumel described him as a jaunty man with a wide, toothy smile, and suspected that Milton Digby was becoming enamored of her. The one other boarder, a deaf old lady, came in handy as a foil, Madame Jumel gleefully recalled in her diary. Whether all this was in the old girl's imagination, whether Digby was really smitten, or whether he had an ulterior motive, was not then evident. But this was only the third day of his stay, and one paid by the week, so even the color of his money was hidden. Tante Marie had come to the house several times since the suicide. The old woman had watched with polite patience a séance of Madame Jumel's, never really put out by the spirits that appeared, as if she were quite familiar, even bored, perhaps, with the whole crew. Madame Jumel would be annoyed at this for a while, until her mounting desire for an audience outweighed her annoyance, unless Tompkins, who helped out around, hitched up Bessie, and once again she would fetch Tante Marie. This evening Tante Marie wanted to examine the tarot cards again, her fascination with Madame Jumel's strange books having been worn out in earlier visits. So, with some diffidence, Madame Jumel produced them. Their undeniable fascination was more than an excuse to bring Milton Digby to the spot. Neither woman gave any evidence of desiring his presence or hearing his remarks as Tante Marie examined the cards. The Chariot, L'Amoureux, Pope Joan, The Last Judgment, and all the rest. What could have made Madame Jumel ask him to take his choice? No sooner were the words out of her mouth than the back of her hand covered it. There were times when Madame Jumel puzzled herself. "I would be delighted to find fortune in your eyes," said Mr. Digby with alacrity. "Nothing for it but to fan out the 56 regular tarot cards plus the 22 Atu." Mr. Digby promptly selected a card. It was the juggler. "Ha! Le Battleur," the crone cackled. "What accounts for this, Mr. Banker?" "Why, I must be the victim of fate's jugglery," he stammered lamely, looking at the card which gave him the lie, for on it appeared a Pierre blandly accepting accolades for his jugglery well done. A strange consternation had caught up with Digby, and there was nothing to do but withdraw and gather his forces. He had taken the room upstairs in which Tolliver had died. Judging from the long pause between the thud of the first shoe and its mate overhead, Digby was thinking, harder than he would like to have it appear. At about 2 a.m, Madame Jumel awoke to hear screams and the sound of Digby thrashing violently. "You can't take it back," he screamed, and the bed was shaken violently. "It's mine now. Don't think for a minute this cage is going to hold me. You—" What was Madame Jumel to do? Was this an ordinary nightmare? If so, how could she deal with it? "Drop that, Stevens. Drop it, I say. If you don't, I'll break open a bank scandal that'll make headlines up and down the West Coast. It's mine, mine, every cent of it." And he began sobbing and shaking the bed again. "Mr. Digby, do you hear me? Mr. Digby, are you all right? Nothing's going to hurt you. You're safe, among friends," Madame Jumel called, rattling the doorknob with both hands as her boarder became wilder, more distraught. Surely he could no longer be dragged by a nightmare. Suppose he were awake? And she fell to shaking the doorknob again. There was a moment's silence. Then the voice began again in a lower register. $25,000 and all mine. A little lesson in honesty doesn't pay, Mr. Stevens. Nice of you to lend me the money. I've been in that teller's cage long enough. There's more money in being silent than being a teller, Mr. Bank President Stevens? His laughter became madder by the minute. This had been going on for nearly an hour when Madame Jumel dressed and went for help. At 5 o'clock, 2 husky neighbors burst in the bedroom door and found Digby unconscious, gripping the iron bars at the foot of his bed. Pale, disheveled, and in a cold sweat, he was taken off to the hospital, strapped in a blanket lest he became violent. At the hospital, where he remained delirious, an effort was made to find his next of kin. With clues from his belongings and from his insane gibberings, it was soon established that 10 years previous he had been a bank teller in San Francisco, who had fled after the suicide of the bank president. The suicide note of the president, Mr. Stevens, confessed embezzlement and named Digby as a blackmailer. Barely enough money was found among Digby's belongings to pay for a week's board. He never recovered his sanity. Chadwick anticipated my question. No, Madame Jumel had not found any money among Digby's possessions, he felt, citing her diary's frank acknowledgment of a vain search. No, the money had probably ebbed away like sand in a glass, leaving Digby desperately hard up and a fugitive as well. For a while, Madame Jumel closed off her ill-fated bedroom, dropped Tante Marie from her friendship, and limited her spiritualistic explorations. She even intended to dispose of the tarot cards, but this was too much. Gradually she recovered her equanimity, however, and soon the room was opened again, and in it slept Mr. A. Morris Shumway, a retired realtor. But at least it cannot be said that Madame Jumel didn't warn him of the room's past. Mr. Shumway had the mouth of a guppy, making silent O's all the while Madame Jumel spoke. Before she had ended, indeed, he was off. "Yes, Madame Jumel, I understand. I understand perfectly. After my own bereavement, I cannot help but understand how these matters affect one. My wife, Madame Jumel, was lost to me just 4 years ago, in such a terrible manner that it has left me sensitive to all such misfortunes. Poor dear Elsie was burned to death at our cottage on Square Lake. One wouldn't have to be as self-centered as Madame Jumel was to look askance at this stout, bald man who burdened you with his sad story before the ink had dried on the guest book. No, anyone might fear lest these doleful details be told and retold until the last bill was paid. Nevertheless, painful though this story might become in repetition, Madame Jumel would listen eagerly to the first telling, since for her the slow pace of the funeral hack had all the fascination of the fast pace of the fire horses. We were up at the camp late in the fall that year. One Monday I got up early to walk to the station and take the train back to Boston. Less than 8 hours after I had left Larchborough Crossing, I received word at my office that our cottage had burned and Elsie in it. Naturally, I hastened to Square Lake as quickly as I could. The terrible news was true, however. Nothing remained of our cottage but the big stone chimney. Elsie had died before the Larchborough fire apparatus had even been hitched up. It was horrible. Madame Jumel expressed her sympathy, but was soon off to open the room and prepare it for occupancy. The first 3 nights of Mr. Shumway's occupancy were uneventful, though he complained of sleeping poorly and of the room's stuffiness. But since he complained of everything else, with whinings and peevishness, all the while feeding himself on nerve pills, Madame Jumel didn't set much store by his more justifiable complaints. On the 4th day, Madame Jumel came into her parlour suddenly, to find Mr. Shumway examining her tarot cards. He looked up with a startled, rabbity expression. "Really, Mr. Shumway, I wish—" "Oh dear, I hope you don't mind, Madame Jumel," he expostulated. "I'm simply fascinated with these old cards." "You shouldn't get into my personal property, Mr. Shumway. You know that." He overlooked her remark completely. "I just chose a card, and really I don't know whether it's good or bad. It's the sun. Tell me, please, is that good, Madame Jumel?" "I couldn't tell you. Put those cards back where they belong." "Oh, very well. The sun does sound like a nice card, even if I've been terribly afraid of fire ever since my wife died. It was so horrible." This association of ideas between the fate of Shumway's wife and this card did not seem close to Madame Jumel. Could she have missed some important point of association that was in Shumway's mind, or did he always excite himself with far-fetched associations surrounding his wife's death? That evening, Shumway was quieter than usual, and retired early. Later that night, Madame Jumel awoke to hear once again noises from that fatal room. Shumway was coughing in a peculiar, half-choked fashion. Madame Jumel stirred angrily in her bed, and finally settled to listen to the latest boarder's discomfort. It was then that she heard Mr. Shumway's voice between coughs, a voice turned to a bleat with deathly fear. She arose and went to the battered, patched door of the guest chamber. First came a bout of coughs, then, "Oh God, smoke!" Then there was a long pause as the coughing died away. Madame Jumel was about to go back to bed when the voice of Shumway came again, abruptly, tensely. "Elsie, what are you doing? Why can't I move? Listen to me, Elsie, dear. You shouldn't tie me up like this, even for a joke. For the love of God, what are you pouring on my mattress? Kerosene? And that burning glass and those matches, what does it all mean? Come back, Elsie, come back. I'll never— Elsie!" Then he was silent. Madame Jumel listened, but nothing more could be heard. She went back to her room to turn over in her mind the strange nightmare that troubled her boarder. Finally, she fell asleep. The next forenoon, Shumway did not appear. There were 2 other boarders, both older women who had heard Shumway but didn't trouble themselves in the matter. Shortly after noon, Madame Jumel's anxiety became apparent. After calling a number of times at Shumway's door, she asked a young man who was fishing nearby and Tompkins, the neighbor who helped with the heavy work, to open the door. They quickly cracked open a panel and turned the key in the lock. Shumway lay stiffly in bed, with the front of his nightgown torn open. He was dead. His hands were convulsed about his bare throat. Dr. Sproul came and hazarded the belief that death was due to a heart attack. The case puzzled him, however, and Madame Jumel heard, or thought she heard, him mutter something about symptom matter of asphyxiation to be looked into. This third misfortune was too much for the boarders, curious or otherwise, and Madame Jumel was soon forced to suspend her activities. Suspicions had been aroused, either by the doctor's indiscreet admission of strange misgivings, or by the two old ladies who would not spend another night in that terrible house. They whispered of having heard Madame Jumel tiptoe to Shumway's door the night he died. Was killed, they said. Since Madame Jumel had not been officially questioned on that subject, nor ventured to say she had been attracted to listen at Shumway's door, this sounded strongly against her in the old lady's whisperings. Much more was spoken, libelous and nearly so, hinting that Madame Jumel had engineered these misfortunes. Some thought for money, some thought out of an obsession. Only Tante Marie spoke out against this opinion. To her it was all brought about by that infernal house and by those diabolical cards. That was the way she saw it. Madame Jumel's diary does condemn her on one point, however. Here is the quotation. All yesterday morning a ghastly suspicion was working in my mind that Mr. Shumway would be found dead. But I would have to wait before having the room opened. Not one word did I say of what I had heard him utter in the night, only that from my room I had heard him having a nightmare. At last the hour became sufficiently late for me to show alarm. Then Madame Jumel goes on to tell of the discovery. But listen to this. As soon as Tompkins left to fetch Dr. Sproul, I went into the room, ostensibly to cover the body, but instead I went straight to Shumway's luggage. In the bottom of his black bag I found 4 bundles of bills. Hastily I transferred them to an old shawl. Where could I hide them? The old stove flue, of course. Hastily I pulled off the metal cover, crammed the shawl and its contents onto the narrow brick ledge, and replaced the cover. And then, when the house was empty of guests, Madame Jumel retrieved the bills. Nearly $4,000 she had. No longer would she be troubled with boarders. Now she could live as she wished. At least that is what she thought. But with her boarders gone, there came to her a loneliness. She prowled about the house restlessly. Spiritualism seemed to her a mockery now. She wrote in her diary of all this, and of her desire to be rid of the tarot cards. She would burn them, in fact. But nothing came of it, until one night in midwinter she got out the tarot cards for the last time. With them before her, she renewed her resolution to destroy them, her pen fairly digging the pages of her diary in her determination. Again she wavered, and succumbed to a strange temptation. How did it come about? What quirk of the gambler's mind caused her to draw a card? At any rate, draw one she did. For later, when she was found dead in a snowdrift well down the unploughed road to Tavistock, crumpled in her frozen hand was a tarot card, the House of Destruction. Chadwick turned to look at me enigmatically. "Well, my friend, the hour is late. Would you rather sleep upstairs or down?" If you enjoyed listening today, be sure to subscribe to the channel by hitting the red subscribe button below. After doing so, click the bell icon next to the subscribe button to receive new content notifications. If you'd like to support our work and receive exclusive perks, consider becoming a channel member by clicking the join button below. To support us in other ways, see the video description for links to our Bandcamp and Patreon pages, our merch store over at Teespring, and further information relating to our releases on Audible, iTunes, and Spotify. And until next time,